Again, so this is part 2 for prescribing. I just didn't want to make a very big, long first part. So this is second part. We're going to learn about how to prescribe gentamicin, and then we're going to top it off with maintenance dose. Like how do you give maintenance fluid to a kid for pediatrics, okay? So it's only 2 cases. It should be shorter. Okay, before we do a sample questions for gentamicin, let's learn about the rules. So the gentamicin, the rule of how many milligrams per kilogram we're going to give to the patient is based on their creatinine clearance. So if the creatinine clearance is more than 50, you can give them higher doses of gentamicin of 5 milligrams per kilogram. If it's between 10 to 49, give him 3 milligrams per kilogram. And then if it's less than 10, so if he's doing really bad, you want to give him lower doses of 1.5 milligrams per kilogram of gentamicin to the patient. Okay, so the dose is based on the creatinine clearance. This is in contrast to vancomycin, where creatinine clearance, if you go up, if you remember, the creatinine clearance was based, the frequency was based on the creatinine clearance, as you can see. And this was the vancomycin, remember? So for vanco, frequency was dependent on the creatinine clearance, whereas in gentamicin, creatinine clearance dictates the dose, not the frequency. The frequency of gentamicin is actually super simple. It's always once daily. So memorize that, you're in your Gucci, okay? Nothing else. So this is once daily and done. However, they have a different set of rules for their doses. For the gentamicin, they're prepped in this manner of multiplications of 40 milligrams. So 1 times 40 is 40, 2 times 40 is 80, 3 times 40 is 120. 4 times 40, 5 times 40, as you can see. I've written down the answers. And you keep going, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just didn't have the time to write it. But you go to a maximum of 480, and then you stop. So if the patients require, like if you do your calculations, go over 480, please don't give them more than 400. Just finish off with maximum dose of 480. This is in contrast to a vancomycin. Remember vanco, the maximum dose was 2000, okay? So again, I want you to compare and contrast these two now that you know. This is multiplications of 40. Vancomycin was a multiplication of 250. Good job. So yeah, this is a little easier in compared to vancomycin because it's a multiplications of 40. It's always once daily. So if you're short out of time, and if it's a gentamicin, you know what? Just write down once daily as a frequency, so at least you get a mark. You don't have to think, right? But for the dose, obviously you need to memorize these ones, and you only for all this, you could write everything down, but you can see, as you can see, I didn't even have time to write everything down. I just put dot, 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 all the way to 480. It's just so much time to write this down, you know. I like to use the multiplication multiplication method. So 40 times a number and find the dose. That's how I like it. And with that, let's actually do a question. You have an 85 kilogram patient. He has urosepsis. So right off the bat, you know, this is some sort of a severe infection. His creatinine clearance is 70. So you already know he lies somewhere around here, so you know what dose to give him. Again, you have to have this memorized, guys. So you might not have it in an exam day right out like this, so just remember this. So it's 70. So you're thinking, okay, I'm giving him 5 milligrams per kilogram. And then obviously you want to give him gentamicin. The question is what dose and frequency. So you already know that it's once a day. Write that in the answer sheet right away, once a day. So you at least get that mark if you're running out of time. If not, fine, let's actually do the calculation. Guys, do the calculations. Go ahead, pause this video and then come back and check your answer. All right. So we said he's start off with something that you know, and that's his weight. So it's 85 kilograms. Write that down first. Then you need to write down the dose. The dose, we said it's based on the creatinine clearance of 70. And we said we went over here and it's 5 milligrams per kilogram. And that's exactly where I got that from. So 5 milligrams per kilogram. Kilogram and kilogram cancel out and you're left with the milligram as the unit for the final answer. But you're going to give him, when you actually do the calculation, you should get 425. So you could write all of this down, but as you can see, I didn't even have time. So, and then you have to find 425 in between and see where it lands and pick the rounded up or a higher value. But ain't nobody got time for that, right? So how do I get that rounded up value? The same thing that we've been doing for vancomycin, right? So I told you this is the multiplications of 40. So you're going to get this value. You're going to divide it by 40. That way you can find these multiplication numbers. Is it 3 times 2? Is it 4 times 40? Is it 5 times? And this is the number we're going to find. There you go. You divide 425 by 40 and you get 10.6. Rounded up, it means 11. So that means this is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you multiply 11 by 40, oops, what did I do? You get, here, 11 times 40, you get 440. So from this ladder that I didn't write the entire thing, you would have chosen 440 milligrams. And we said it's always once a day or once daily for gentamicin. And that's what you're going to write for your answer sheet, okay? All right, guys, I hope that was really clear for gentamicin. Gentamicin comparison to the one is super easy. Okay, now let's do a maintenance dose. If you have a kid, this is for pediatrics. You have a 10-year-old kid. He's fasting for some sort of a procedure, and your resident comes to you and is like, dude, this kid is 10 years old and he's 25 kilograms. Okay, can you please calculate his fluid maintenance and let me know so I can start him on that? So what do? You should know this. Okay. Before we go ahead, you need to know these rules before we can calculate his fluid maintenance. You need to realize that the first 10 kilograms of the patient's weight, for that, you give him 100 milliliters per kilogram. Okay? For the second 10 kilograms of the patient's weight, it's 50 mils per kilogram. And then the remaining of whatever his weight is, you're going to multiply 20 by the weight. So it's 20 milligrams per kilogram. Okay? So 150, 20. Say it every night so that way you don't forget it. 150, 20. If any of your doctors ask, remember 150, 20. You remember how many times I said it. So if you remember this, and then you can solve this question. So obviously this is weight related. So how many kilograms was the kid? 25. So the first 10 kilo should be multiplied by 100. The second 10 kilo should be multiplied by 50. So we're at 20 now. So the remaining is 5. So 5 will be multiplied by 20. And that's exactly what I've written here. There you go. So you're going to write down this rule. I told you the first 10 kilo multiplied by 100. There you have your 100. The second 10 kilo, you multiplied by 50. The third and remaining, which is now, imagine, this is 10 plus 10, that's 20 kilograms, plus 5 is 25 kilograms, and that's exactly his weight. So that's 25 kilograms, and then you multiply it, and then you get all these values. And why are they in milliliters? Well, because kilogram and kilogram cancel, and you're left with mils for all of these cases. So what you're going to do is add this to this to this. And I've written it down here. So you need to give this kid a total of 1,600 mils for his, fluid maintenance. But will you give him the entire thing at once? No, you can't. It's too much, fluid. So how will you give it to him? Well, take that value and divide it over 24 hours. Because it's just, he might die if you give this whole thing to him, or I don't know. So it's not a good idea. So divide that over 24 hours. And that means every hour you will give him 66.6 mils. And that's how you're going to set up so he receives that much per hour. And that's probably in the answer choice, it will be mils per hour. Okay, let's say if he was 20 kilograms, what would you do? So this would be 10, multiply by that. This also will be 10, and you multiply by that and you get this number. What are you going to do about the rest? Because 10 plus 10 is already 20. Do you have a remaining? No, so this comes down to 0 because you want this plus this plus this to all be his total weight up here. If I told you this was 20 kilograms, obviously you don't even need to calculate this. Just calculate these two, add them together, done. If I told you he was, I don't know, 40 kilograms, let's say he was 40 kilograms. So what would you do? This will be still 10. This will be 10. So 10 plus 10 is what? 20. So the remaining is what? So the remaining is another 20, right? Because I told you he's 40 kilos, right? So 10 plus 10, 20, 30, 40. So the sum of all of those should come down to what you have up here. Anyways, I hope that helps, guys. And that was the end of the tutorial. I hope that helped. And remember, if you guys want to know the first part, we talked about all these calculations for hydrocortisone, for enoxaparin, and we talked about Vanco and some examples. And in the second part, we talked about gentamicin and maintenance. Anyways, hope you have a good evening. Bye now.